Okay, let's get started with prepping our workstations with for to do some malware analysis things. Also, we have to start with assembly, so you have to at least know the basics of assembly, or you can use books to actually guide you through some of the assembly stuff. So a prerequisite is if you're learning assembly, so you can understand some of the assembly components that I have in here, and one of the prereqs is know a little bit about Docker, but I tried to make it a little bit easy to get things up and running. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need Docker, which Docker is here. It's supported by Mac. It's supported by, and you can go to docker.com. It's supported by Mac. It's supported by Linux. It's supported by Windows. And one thing you can do is go to docker.com, and I'm sure you can click on getting started, and here are all the downloads. So right now it's detecting that I'm using Linux, but you have the Mac and you have the Windows right here. Another thing, in order to get my repo, you'll have to install Git as well. So, Git is for Linux, it's for Mac as well, it's for Windows as well. So you'll have to go through and download it for Linux or Windows. If you can see, you got different. You can do it from source, you can get it from Tarball, and it can guide you through on how to download it based on it can detect your OS. Okay. So right here is the actual repo that I made for getting started. So this is the repo right here, and I'll put that link somewhere where you can get it, where you can pull it down. Okay. So now let's talk about getting that clone out of here. So what I'm gonna do is I already have everything cloned down, but say if you don't have it cloned down. So what you can do is I'll move this out of the way. You can go over to the clone. You can hit copy right here, and I have this all public. And what you can do is you can go in here, and I'm going to remove my malware analysis folder for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the link. This is after setting up Git and everything. And I'm going to pull down the malware analysis. So I pulled it down, and you're going to get something like this, where you can CD into the malware folder. And let me do a clear, and then here we are right here. So with my, because I have NASM and everything set up on my Debian, which I don't recommend it for malware analysis. I don't recommend it for learning assembly because you don't want to jack something up. But if you want to be dangerous like me, install it to, I have a Debian box. I run Ubuntu, install it to your Ubuntu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this out. So all of your source that you'll be doing is in here. Okay, this is where all your source is. It's in that SCR file. Okay, so I'll do a PWD so you can see it, and it's all here. So you have to have make installed and stuff like that. If you look into the Docker file, you can see everything I installed is a very simple install. And I made some modifications to the Docker file where you run as actually the root user and not a new user. For production ready things, don't do that. Actually make a user within Docker, assign the right privileges and stuff like that. So if I go through here and I run make, it actually builds that entire project, which let's do a clear, and if I do a lslrt, and if you notice, we have the actual assembly file, we actually have the library that we make when we do the linker, we have the actual malware analysis file, actual binary, and then we actually have the logging file or the output of when we compiled it. Okay. So if you actually if you vim and go to the malware analysis.asm, and then this is the simple assembly code that I put in here to verify that everything is ready to go. And then if you actually run this right here, see, it actually runs our assembly file. So let's go into the make file. So the make file I did on my own. I even made the linkers, and then what I'm doing is I'm running this in ELF64. I like ELF64, but during my lectures, it might be we might be using the low registers and high registers and stuff like that. We might not get too deep into some of the programming aspect, but it will be beneficial to when you're learning memory management about high and low registers. Um, 32-bit, 64-bit, going down to your 16-bit. When to use those registers, when not to use those registers. I also put the linker in here for the GCC, so we can actually compile this into a binary. And I actually put the how to make that actual into form like a library, and then just link it here. I did some modifications here because the GCC that we're using, instead of using NoPy to use functions from to cheat and use functions from the actual C compiler, you will need this right here, which in my code we don't really need this right now, but we need it if we're going to import or bring in an external function from the C compiler or the C standard library, like printf or something like that. So let's talk about get the Docker up and running. So one thing you'll need to do is when you get that Docker up and running, what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you that Docker file really quick that I modified. So this is the Docker file right here. So if you notice, it's a quick install, and I keep it open using bash because I want it to be where we don't have to really keep the attach running, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So even when you don't have Docker Compose running, you can actually run the container without Docker Compose. So what we're going to do is let's run docker dash compose, and let's go up. Okay, so now I had it built already, but it'll build everything and it'll keep it running. So let's talk about when we do the attachment. Okay, so attaching something is it's going to run it as a service, and I kept that bash open so Docker, so the container won't go down. It'll say, okay, I'm continuing to run the bash. Okay, so let's go over to another another window, and what we're going to do is we're going to, let's say, like we're going to, in this other window, we're going to actually bash into the actual container. So the container's name is Nazim. So what we'll do is we'll do a docker, and then we'll do a exec dash it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give it the name, which I named it Nazim, and you can see that in the Docker Compose file, and bash. So after I do that, if I do a lslrt, see, look what happens. Our files are here, and if I run make, then it automatically does that make for me. So say to prove that this is, and this is right here, so see how we got malware analysis? So to prove that this is working, what I do is, and I want to show how we are connected to a volume, okay? So if you go and look inside of that volume, okay, we'll go grab that volume, and let's see. Let's go and grab that volume, and let's see, my visual code. Let's get my visual code up and running. And this is why I like this. So I attached to that. So what I did was I actually attached to the the directory that I was in when I built everything. And if you notice, when you put it a pull down, the only thing you had was the make file and the ASM file. So these two right here. So that proves that, you know, everything is there. See, if we match up what files we have in here, you can actually see both files right here, all of the files that are here. Okay, so if I was to go into here and let's go and open up our assembly file. So if I was to go in here and let's take that S, turn it to a D or something like that, and if I run the make, see what happens? It changes. Okay, so that's that connection. That makes it a lot easier. And this is Windows savvy. You can do the same thing in Windows. Prep your Windows to run Docker Compose and Docker. You need Docker in order to have the Docker, in order for the Docker Compose to work. So also what I can do is I can go in and I can vim And let's see, let me see if my permissions are correct. So if I go and do the malware analysis.asm and see how it's changed right here, I can go back in and I can add something like this right here. Let's spell it wrong and then let's see. Fingers crossed. And it saved it. So look at that. It changed it. I can run the make and look at that. It changed everything for me on both sides. Okay. Also, a couple things that I did for the development environment. I added a few extensions. If you go and look for assembly extensions, so if you go into the extensions that you have, and these are the ones. So I installed the assembly code lens, the ARM. I installed quite a few others too. So let's do this. Let's go ASM right here. And so here go the lens right here. I installed that. And a couple others. You can kind of play around and see which ones that work for you. But these are the two that I installed, and I got quite a few more that I installed as well for assembly. This is how you get this highlighting here. So I got all the highlighting and everything that I wanted here, so I know if I'm doing it right or not. But that's it. That's all I have for this video, and hopefully this gets you started.